Hello. As you can see, I'm not with my normal co-host. In a space that never dies, we will be the hero travel guides. Welcome. Hello, this is Editor Eli, letting you know that there are spoilers for Blue Lock, My Hero Academia, Wednesday, and Dead Space 3 in this follow-up podcast. If you do not want to be spoiled, you can either skip a little ahead and you'll find the little segments of what we talk about, or you can just skip the episode. But yeah, I hope you enjoy, and time should be going back to normal in a few seconds here.
am Eli Guy, the Shy Guy's girlfriend, and I drew his model. I didn't rig it because I'm not that smart, but I'm his artist for the most part.
Today's episode is going to be uh, TV shows, series, or games that you feel shouldn't exist. Can go into deep depth about
Yes! I'm so happy you said this. I have
and
so many controversial opinions about things like this.
and so we are gonna take turns, go back and forth. Do you want to start us off first since you got so excited?
Ah, sure. So, as an artist, I mainly don't really focus on plot as much as the normal person. So for me, when a show has a terrible art style, like when the show just does things absolutely cheap, but it looks really bad, when I know they don't have to. So for me, the number one that's like going on right now is a show called Blue Lock.
Oh my.
I feel like if they just kept to the 2D, it would be fine. But no, especially this recent episode pissed me off so much. I watched it last night with my friends, and holy shit. So what they do is they have like these like ongoing shots that are just like close up to their face, like it's like a stop in time thing. And they do that a lot with the main style, which is like a bunch of heavy and light line work with hashing and stuff for the shadow. But then they also do the cell shading, which is also really weird because they already did the hashing and it just wastes their time. Like, why would you do the hashing when you already did the cell shading? It makes no sense. But whatever, that's their go. But instead of keeping that for the background, they decided to make 3D models of every single character in the scene. Now, mind you, this wouldn't be an issue if there was like only like 3 or 4 characters that they do this to. No, there's like 20 different characters that have their own backstory that they do this for, that they've made models for. And they gave them the same like bones to move about, and because of that, sometimes they look so clear and sometimes they look really stiff. And it just doesn't work. And I notice it like instantly to the point where I can't really enjoy the show because in the background, I'll just see someone just moving in the weirdest ways possible, and then I can't focus on what's actually happening in the scene. Plus, I also don't watch soccer, so I have no idea what's happening half of the time.
Yeah, okay. For clarification, this is coming from the perspective of she's saying this as someone who hasn't watched Blue Lock, who's only seen like episode 11 and like in the most recent episode.
No,
And
I've
the
seen 11
entire
to the recent episode. It
and
happens every episode.
and the entire time she focuses on the background and only to the like the focus will be on like Isagi. It'll be like an
Yeah.
Isagi shot. And then in the background you'll see like in the back corner you'll see someone running and she focuses on the back corner instead of 90% of the screen. So take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, and then for the effects, they use like transparent PNGs that you could find on the internet for the effects, especially for this recent episode, if you know what I'm talking about. I don't want to say because spoilers, but they have a CGI like monster thing, which actually works really well. But it like stopped working for me when the effects weren't made in 2D and it was obviously just a random transparent GIF that they found and they just slapped on the screen, and I was like, okay, I don't care for this anymore. Because with the popularity of Blue Lock, especially when it was released during the World Cup, you would think, hey, now that we have the budget, we don't have to do this anymore. I mean, we could just 2D everything and it could look simultaneous. No, they don't do that. Instead, they have like two different art styles for when they do the background stuff, which is also why I notice it, because it doesn't match the art style that they have um for those stills, and like they're like mental thinking like while the game's going on. That's all I understand. It's like a thing that like the characters see mentally, but like they aren't actually happening in real life. Kind of like One Piece with hockey, if that's my understanding, but shitted on by the animation, especially the background. Because you could tell that it's like for a quick buck and it pisses me off.
All right. And okay.
Especially the ball. Don't get me started on the ball, dude. Oh my god. Okay, so there's a thing in like art called foreshortening, where when things go into the background, they get smaller. When things get closer, they get bigger. They don't do that with this animated 3D ball. So like it'll look like you think that it's supposed to be by one character, but if you look closely, the ball just looks like as big as the character's head, and you're like, I don't think that's supposed to. I don't think that's how balls work in space. It pisses me off. And then for this recent episode, they had the audacity to make a whole 3D model of the field, and then put the 3D models in the field, thinking that I wouldn't notice. I think they're just fucking with me at this point, because they did it like a lot more in this latest episode than other episodes that I remember watching, and it pissed me off so much. And like when I see stuff like that, I like verbally cringe.
Yes, yes, she does. Okay. So
I
moving
could
on.
go on and on, but I don't
We
want
have a
to. I don't
limited
want to.
time, limited time. So moving on before we get canceled.
Oh, I
Everyone,
don't care if I get canceled. It's fun.
everyone
It's
get your
content.
pitchforks ready. Anyways, swiftly moving on to my series that I think shouldn't exist, and I have two, both of them with asterisks, at least for now, because there's the obvious one that I feel like shouldn't exist, like Redo a Healer, but that one's super obvious on why it shouldn't exist, and is My Hero Academia. And I say this with the caveat of only season 5 and 90% of season 6, because here's the background, right? Is My Hero season 1 fire, right? It was a good story. Deku cried way too much, I would say, but like I get it, right? Season 2, that tournament arc, really good. Stain, really good, right? Season 3 kind of tipped off a little bit with like the little like training arc, but like it made sense. Uh, Season 4 with Overhaul, fucking one of the best segments of My Hero, right? Like Overhaul is probably the best villain, and it's not even close to anyone else. Not even close. Then season 5 happened. And you don't have to watch anything of season 5 until the last like 5 episodes. And if you don't have to watch the season to understand what's going on, I feel makes it really, really bad. Like that was like the lowest of the low. And then it has the audacity. The
Sorry.
the audacity. Okay. So
I tried to.
here's
I
my
tried. I'm sorry. I did.
here's why I get angry about this is that from season 5 forward I read the manga. And so in season 6 the best part about it, I say, is when the heroes lose the war and their Deku's pretty much forced to be a vigilante because story reasons basically being I know you're laughing because of the memes, but
The memes are so funny.
anyways,
Get to the
for
vigilante.
that was like 9 chapters, right? It was like the episode where he became a vigilante, and then you saw him like obliterate Muscular, which is from season 3, by the way. Amazing fight. The second, the second fight was just a wash. There is like this one lady that gets introduced, and then she gets blown up, and then R.I.P. whatever. And then after that, it was gonna be it's a fight between Deku and all of Class 1A. And it sets it up to being like this big dramatic moment. Because the whole reason why Deku's a vigilante is because the big bad Shigaraki has one for all. No, all for one. So he basically can just become God and is like, man, fuck this class, fuck the heroes, blah, 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 whatever. And the worst part about it is that he's only targeting Deku. And so oh, I gotta, I gotta get out because if I'm a part of this classroom, then he's gonna come to this classroom, kill everybody. Like, I can't be a part of that. I can't be responsible for that. I'm a hero after all. So he leaves. And so the class is like, oh, you don't have to protect us. We are blah, blah, blah. And it sets it up to be this big climactic thing like, oh shit, he's gonna fight everybody. And they quite literally give him a pat on the head and says, hey, you don't want to be evil. You don't look at you. You're all ragged up. Don't you want to have better clothes? You can sleep. Come on now. And that's it. It's over. Fucking over. And it's like that was the moment when I was like, oh, it's like my hero's actually trying to get my attention again. Like it went from like good to like it went from good to still being good to to like really good, and then what the fuck am I watching to oh my god, this is monotonous to really good, and then it immediately just said nah, fuck you. And so I personally feel like season 5 shouldn't exist so that the what the fuck am I watching isn't there, and it just keeps on just being good. Like it wouldn't be so mid to me if season 5 didn't exist. So I say that shouldn't exist.
A recent show that I hated, that I wish didn't exist. I watched this during when it came out, and I saw the hype about it, and
I
I was
know
like,
it's
okay, Wednesday. I absolutely despised that show. I despised the writing. Jenna Ortega was very good as Wednesday. I feel like they picked it very well, but I feel like the writing was just dog shit. I feel like they got the characters all wrong. They misunderstood what the Adams family was about. You know, Adams family. You know, family.
hmm
And I feel like the thing that got me the most was the relationship between Morticia Adams and Wednesday Adams, and how instead of Morticia being like this really good motherly figure who told her kid that it's okay to go out into the world and be you and just ignore people who think that it's weird. They turned her into like a very controlling, overbearing person who only wants her daughter to be just like her. And that Wednesday Adams is just a force like a shadow in her mom's spotlight. And I that's not the point of the show at all. Or like the original show, at least, if that makes sense. They just took a very great classic series and fucked it up just like they did Riverdale, because it was a part of it was based off of the Archie comics, and then they fucked up Archie's character, and then they made it like wizards and shit. And they did that same thing. Literally in this universe, I mean, I get it. It's the Adams universe, like anything could happen, but why would there be a school full of like the textbook monsters and they all just gathered there and they're just quote unquote weirdos, and Wednesday's the only human? Like, that doesn't make sense. It makes no fucking sense. And then don't even get me started on the relationships that they tried to push with Wednesday.
Yeah, I
The
remember you
set
used
was
to.
amazing though.
I remember you used to complain about it like almost every chance you got. You'd be like, "Oh, fuck this show."
Yeah, no, it was just really bad. Writing was bad. The characters are bad. The settings and the costumes are very nice though, and I could tell that like the actors did what they could with the horrible script that they got, and they did a really good job. Especially seeing Jenna in Scream 6 and seeing what she can like do. I could like see it in her performance of Wednesday, and I heard, I don't know if it's a rumor or confirmed, but she's now gonna be a part of the script, and she's gonna take out all the stupid shit with the romance and shit from the next season of Wednesday, which I'm very happy about if that's true, because apparently she hated that as well as everybody else did.
Hmm.
So hopefully Jenna Ortega will save the day. Um, and I feel like if she goes back to the get off the mommy daughter issue like bandwagon that a lot of people do in media now, which is why I don't watch TV shows a lot, because it like shit like that happens all the time, and it's so obvious that I can just point out being like, oh my god, this is gonna happen, and then it happens like an hour later. I'm like, oh my god, I knew it, it's such a surprise. And like, there's no shock value anymore, and Wednesday's a very great example of the writing that they just gotta stop doing, man.
The last thing that I feel shouldn't exist is Dead Space 3. And to anyone that's played it, you know why. But I don't think my lover over here does, because
No, no, I don't. I don't
she
like horror.
because she knows how excited I was for the remake, which I can't
Yes.
play sadly. But not the point. So the plot of Dead Space is basically that there are these uh
Before you go on, I be frozen. On the stream, I'm frozen. Like, I not moving. There I am. Okay.
anyways, okay. So the plot of Dead Space 3, not 3, just the series, is that there's like these relays that exist are called markers, and the markers corrupt like any person or into like either killing themselves or killing people, or they turn them into cultists. And if a dead body is near a marker, they turn into a necromorph. It like reanimates their body and like turns them into like body horror, like bunch of crazy stuff. And you play as a man named Isaac Clarke, who's in the first game is just on a mission to find and save his girlfriend, because she's on the Ishimura
Isn't it his
also.
wife?
Oh, his wife, you're right. And
Uh-uh.
so the the basic gimmick of the game is that, or the plot twist is that the entire time Nicole is dead. Like she sends Isaac a message to go and meet her and stuff, and he sees like sometimes it extends, other time it doesn't. But at the very end of the game, you're like interacting with Nicole like right in front of you, and you're talking with them, and it's like oh yeah, we're definitely doing the right thing as we're moving this marker into our planet so that it can affect more people. And then like a government person like locks you into this little dome, and it's like watch the rest of that message and you'll know why I can't trust you. And then it's like he finally sits down and watches it, and at the end of the message, Nicole sits back and dies. And so he's like, "What? No, I was just talking to Nicole. You're right next to her." Because like Nicole is there, but then she like grabs her and like throws her aside, and she changes to a different person. And then to that person, Isaac was her boyfriend. Like it was corrupt. Like the marker was corrupting their mind. So they were like, "What the fuck is this? What the hell?" And so at the end of it, you eventually get off the Ishimura, and it's like, well, fuck, and you like turn off the marker, and you're like, well, what the hell, and you just sit back, and you slowly look to the right, and it's just Nicole there, and she jump scares you with a bunch of like marker symbols and stuff. And then Dead Space 2 it starts off with Isaac in like a psyche ward. Like they're like evaluating his
Psyche
mind.
ward.
Yeah, you heard me. A psyche ward.
Psyche wakey ward.
Shut up. It's
I put Will Isaac to the psyche ward. He needs to be tweeted with the mental illness.
anyways. So they put him in a psych ward, are examining him, and it's like, yo, you okay? All that stuff. And then a bunch of cultists are just murdering everybody around and turning him into necromorphs. And Isaac's like, what the fuck? Like, bro, cut me out of the street jacket and I can help, but trust me. And so the rest of the game, it's like kind of reverse from the first game, because the first game was like you're like sort of trying to like you're like running away from the necromorphs. You're not trying to engage them. You're just trying to figure out what's going on. In the second game, you know what's going on, and Isaac says, "I'm gonna do this. Fuck everything." And so you become the thing that the necromorphs are like running from, and the cultists need to stop. And as as good as those two, like by themselves, those one Dead Space 1 and 2, great games. As a pair, perfection. It's one of the best experiences you can ever have. Like that's why I want to try and get Bana into playing it, even as not a big fan of like survival horror or like jump scares and stuff. There's not too many, and it's not bad enough, but it's just such a rich experience. Then Dead Space 3 happened. So I like this. I'll start off with the positives. I like Isaac's attitude in Dead Space 3 because he has the attitude of fuck this, I'm over it, leave me alone, right? As like government people are coming in and like taking him out and all that stuff, and so they're like, oh, there's another marker. You built a marker because Isaac built the first marker technically because Dead Space logic, and it's like, oh no, I didn't build shit, leave me alone, blah blah blah. And so they guilt trip him with his love interest of Dead Space 2. Her name's Ellie, because it's insinuated that they get together at the end of Dead Space 2, because it replays the scene from Dead Space 1 just as but instead of Nicole, it's Ellie. And so he looks over and Ellie's there, and she looks at him and is like, what, why are you staring at me? And nothing happens. And then like there's no jump scare like there was in the first game. And in the third game, she's like dating this like douchebag. Like he's like an absolute dick. Like what the like he's fucking like stupid and annoying. But there's like the entire time there's like relationship like banter back and forth, and it's like, oh my god, y'all need to stop. And it's like conflict of like, oh, you guys were lovers before, now you're not, ha ha ha, my PP's bigger than yours, kind of stupid shit. And then now, and so what they decided to do in Dead Space Dead Space 3 was they made it a co-op experience. They like made it so that the
What?
game is designed for co-op, where it's like if you're gonna play Dead Space 3 at any point just to experience the game because you played Dead Space 1 and 2 and it's like I love this, I might as well play 3 even though I know it's bad. Make a friend before you do because there are co-op side missions, there are co-op experiences. Fucking the new character's name's Carver. He's cool by the way. He's like another good thing in Dead Space 3. He like for a lot of cutscenes, he'll pretty much just like walk out of frame just so it's still like Isaac's thing. And then he'll like reappear if you're playing co-op. Like he'll just like appear back in frame. Or it'll be like he'll be talking in the background and if you're playing solo then Isaac's just talking to no one. And it's like there's so many times. On top of that, the game like throws so many more enemies at you for no reason, and it's ridiculous. Like they do so much just for nothing. And then oh my god, and the biggest character assassination in the game that pisses me off is Ellie. Going back to Ellie, right? In Dead Space 2, she pretty much loses an eye and like is such a bad like she loses an like she's so badass like she loses an eye and like kills off three necromorphs and she grabs Isaac and like shoves him into an elevator and is like you owe me an eye you fucking bastard and then she like shoves him down like the chute while she's like handling necromorphs like she's very much a get shit done person. And then in Dead Space 3 the biggest thing that fucking pissed me off was there's a scene later on with like gas that's filling a room and she runs up and it's clearly like a gap she can jump like she can jump over the gas because if you touch the gas you like you like get caught on fire and she like runs she looks like she's gonna run but then she stops and she's like I can't make it Isaac I love you and then Isaac closes the door so he doesn't get trapped. To me that made me mad because Ellie would have at least tried to make that jump. Even if she didn't make it, she would have at least tried. Like, I guess, like, oh, but she comes back later. She gets saved. Whatever the fuck. Like, she's so much of a damsel in distress in this game. And in Dead Space 2, she was not putting up with anyone's shit. Like, she was like, anytime Isaac had a bad idea, she was just like, no, you're fucking stupid. We're not doing that. And then she would come up with a better plan. Like instead of, but in Dead Space 3, it's like, well, that's the best thing we got. Might as well. It's like, sucks. It fucking sucks. And then EA wanted to monetize it by being like, here's these resource robots that you can set out in the middle of the game, and it's like, these guys can get you resources that you can get while you're offline, but you only get one. But if you want 5 more, give me $10. And then they put the actual ending or the quote unquote actual ending in a DLC because at the end of the game what basically happens is that there's a cultist group that like grabs the that like tries to bring a thing they call the codex and tries to reawaken the like necromorph moon that was made from the marker from Dead Space 1. And so throughout the game, there's a bunch of times where Isaac will just like go into a frenzy and he just keeps saying turn it off. And that's because it's the moon like taking control over him and telling him to turn off the machine to unfreeze it. So at the end of the game, they basically turn off that machine. Isaac fights this big necromorph, and then it's like Carver and him are like, well, shit, what do we do? We turn this thing off and we die here? That's the end of our story? And he's like, yeah, but Earth lives another day. So then he turns it off and they're like both free falling and like there's no way they're gonna make it. He pulls out a picture of Ellie and lets go of it and then black screen. And then it cuts to Ellie and she's like, wait, Isaac, you did it. But you're gone, aren't you? And then she like has a little like sad fit about it. Black screen again. And then it's uh a distorted call from Isaac being like, Ellie, can you, Ellie, and then it's over. You want to know what happened? Buy the $15 DLC, where all that happens is Carver and Isaac are like, what the hell happened? We fell. Like, we died. We fell. And it's like, well, there's a bunch of magic that happens. There's necromorphs that exist, so clearly we didn't die. And then they go through, find out more about the cultists, and then they get off the ship or wherever the fuck they were. They look up and they go into Earth, and there's another marker and a cultist moon over the Earth. End of DLC. And it's like, you want to know what happens? Buy Dead Space 4, except the company went out of business because Dead Space 3 was such a flop.
That's awful.
It was so bad. It's so bad, and it makes me really, really upset because the company that made Dead Space was so much better than that, and I know damn well they didn't want to make that game the way it was. There's
Mhm.
no way that they like intentionally made it co-op only when like the first two games were exclusive first-person shooters with or third-person shooters with like they gave you guns. That's how I know that Dead Space 3 was not supposed to be a Dead Space game. In the first two games, they were mining equipment. You had to build it yourself because Isaac's an engineer. In Dead Space 3, they're literal guns. Literal guns. Like might as well be Resident Evil up in this bitch. Like God.
Yeah, it sounds like bad. I'm glad there's a remake for the first one, but it sucks that you cannot play it.
Will say
Sad.
the remake is very, very good. I watched Maximilian Dude play it. Shout out to you. Um, I probably can't put that in the YouTube video, but I watched Maximilian Dude play it, and I pretty much experienced it with him because he played Dead Space 1, but didn't finish it, and then he played a bit of Callisto Protocol, and after he died like halfway through, he was just over it.
Mhm.
It's probably the funniest clip ever. He just like he dies because the melee is like fighting two enemies at once is like omega bad, and so it happens, and so he dies because of it, and he just presses the PS button, deletes the game, looks at chat and says, "So that was Callisto Protocol." It's the funniest shit ever. But
Guys, that was Callisto Protocol.
yeah, it was very fun. I'll show you the clip after Bana. But I think that's gonna close out the podcast. We both got three, technically four. Yeah, technically you got four because you got the two honorable mentions. But
Mhm.
uh, yeah. So you guys should be able to. You guys will see this. Give me a week, technically 2 weeks grace period for the YouTube video being out, as this is gonna be the first time editing it. Um, Check out our socials. I will probably put them on screen or they're going to be in the description. I'm a Lie Guy the Shy Guy. I'll also put in my co-host, Munii SHODA, who is on a vacation right now. Go and show her some love. This is Banabear VT. Check out on Twitch, and her Twitter is Banabear25?
Yes,
Or did you change that too?
I might have changed that. Hold on, my face might get wonky.
But anyways, I'll put you in the you just tell me later. I'll put you in the description, and then
I can tell you right now. Yeah, Banabear 25.
Banabear 25. Check out her artwork. She did my model. She's also is doing an upcoming model for me, which will be a very funny experience for y'all. Um, yeah, it'll be a very fun one, and be sure to give her a check out. Check her out. Her art. Her art's fucking amazing. I'm not saying that because I'm her
Oh,
boyfriend. It's genuinely really good. And yeah,
yeah.
so that'll be all for the podcast today, and I'll catch y'all later. Bye bye.
Goodbye, podcast.
So to close out, I am Eli Guy the Shy Guy, and I was joined by Banabear VT, and my normal co-host is Munii SHODA, which you will probably see her within the next week or so, or after next week. So Yeah, I hope you all enjoyed the first Eli edited podcast. I'll see y'all next week for the actual live one, which will begin on Monday at 6 o'clock.